I'm Gary Thatcher, the CEO and co-founder of the Retail Summit. Today we have just over 700 of you tuning in from 41 different countries, I believe. So a very warm welcome wherever you are in the world. Over the last 3 to 4 weeks, the team and I have hosted over 100 research calls with the retail community. And I can't think of many conversations where sustainability didn't come up as a top focus and top priority for brands across the world. So it gives me great pleasure today to welcome our speakers, Ignacio, Carolina, Christine, and Sammar, who will be talking about sustainability in fashion. As always, please feel free to engage with us and pop your questions across. Sammar will be picking them up throughout, and there's plenty of time allocated at the end where he'll pop them across to our speakers. Again, we record the session and that will be available this afternoon. And this week, a special treat, we have a guide to sustainability improvements in fashion, which has been composed by SAP, and that will accompany the video. So without further ado, I'll pass over to Sammar to kickstart the questions. Over to you, Sammar.
Thank you so much, Gary. Thank you for that kind introduction and welcome all. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm very pleased to have you join on this very important topic. So to kick things off straight away, I'd like to first invite Christine. Christine, would you like to share with us the perspective on sustainability from the luxury industry, given that KERING represents such a stellar portfolio of brands?
Yes, great. Thanks, Sammar and Gary, and for organizing this webinar and inviting me to participate. I'm really happy to be here speaking with all of you. So I assume you're aware of KERING, which is a global luxury group. Within our portfolio of Maison, we have Gucci, Saint Laurent, Alexander McQueen, Balenciaga, Bottega Veneta, Brioni. We have jewelry and watch brands as well, such as Ulysse Nardin, Pomellato, Keelan, Dodo. So a wide variety of brands, each with its own sort of DNA and its own way of moving forward in terms of their creativity, for sure, but also sustainability. So for us, we're really lucky because our chairman and CEO, François-Henri Pinault, believes very deeply that it's not only the moral responsibility of a company to behave responsibly in the way they're doing business, but it's also important for the long-term sustainability of the business. So survivability or longevity of the business. And especially with luxury, we're very focused on sourcing high quality raw materials from natural ecosystems like our cashmere, our wool, our leather. So we have a very strong tie to those ecosystems, to preserving that biodiversity, to be able to also preserve the supply of these materials in the long term. So I think I'll maybe leave it there and let some of the others speak, because our main driver, I'd say, is this drive from the top and Mr. Pinault, and the consumer conversation is another one that we can also have, and where our brands are beginning to communicate more on sustainability. But historically, it hasn't really been the focus of a lot of our houses when they're doing their sustainability work. So I think maybe Carolina might have some additional comments on that side, I'm sure.
Yes, Carolina, it'd be great to hear from you. ECOALF was founded, as a native sustainability brand, built from the ground up with sustainability in its DNA. Would you like to share with us how you've dealt with the acceleration of sustainability as a concern amongst consumers?
Yes. First of all, thank you again as well, Sammar and Gary, for inviting ECOALF and taking part in this webinar. I think it's for me it's all about when ECOALF started. No, it's going back into 2009, and Javier Goyeneche, who's the president and founder of the brand, he wanted to create a truly sustainable fashion brand. The more sustainable is to stop using natural resources. And basically we wanted to create and to use recycling. If we were able to make a new generation of recycled products with the same quality and design as the best non-recycled. And I think that 10 years after, this mission and this vision stays intact, and probably with more strength and clarity than ever. I think that we are all in the fashion business, and unfortunately, it's the second most polluting industry in the world. So we believe that we have a mission that goes way beyond business. Fashion is more than just looking good. It's about doing what is right and feeling good about it. And we as a fashion brand have that responsibility and that commitment, and also to be able to educate our consumers, no? To make them understand what does sustainability mean across the whole supply chain and across the whole brand. I think the commitment with the people, the planet, all the partners that work with us at ECOALF, the coherency between what we say and what we do, and the transparency and integrity behind the brand. We are not perfect. We don't say we are. We know we have a lot of improvements and a lot of things to improve, but that's what we are targeting, and that's what we are improving and making better and better every season, no? I think these are brand values that were born with ECOALF in 2009 and continue to be exactly the same. And this is a brand proposition that I believe our partners and our clients value the most, the commitment behind and what we are fighting for every day.
Right, so just before I hand over to Ignacio, one follow-up question there. How do you engage in the conversation continually with your customers on these topics that you've mentioned?
I think we try to do this omni-channel. No, I think digitally we try to be very open and to talk in a very simple way about what we are achieving and what we're trying to achieve, and then also in our retail space we try to convey this message across all our products, so on the label, on the tags, on the window displays, in the merchandising, to make it very simple. To make people understand and to continue that engaged communication across all our consumers, whether if it's in Spain or in New York.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So Ignacio, over to you. TENDAM was founded, many years ago. It's a long-established brand with a great history. And so for your organization, it's as the sustainability journey has progressed, it's been more about adaptation. Could you touch upon how your organization has adopted and adapted to sustainability?
Okay, thank you very much, Sammar, and thank you, Gary. And pleased to share this panel with you, Christine and Carolina. Really, I mean, in a company which was born in 1880, I mean, sustainability represents the challenge of being relevant for the customer every year, day by day, year by year, and after more than a century. I mean, we think that the key is doing right, acting right, and being relevant in the proposal we do with the customer. This is trust. I mean, we are trustable if we act right. In this sense, we have been quite in the mainstream, focus always in quality and in value more than in volume. Of course, we are a big player, and we think that our responsibility there is that big players have impact. I mean, as a company which is at this moment present through our brands, Correfiel, Pedro Hierro, Springfield Women's Secret, in more than 70 countries all over the world. We have the key of the impact, and every decision we choose to make, I mean, will have a material impact. Last year, for example, when we joined the Fashion Pact, that was an initiative led by François-Henri quite brilliantly, and we are seeing a strong advance of collective voice. I mean, we really focus on climate change and things like that, and we were able to reduce 30% of our CO2 emissions, which is a goal that it's been established for the medium term. So it just really in 1 year, and also to get the 80% of our energy supply by renewable resources. So all these kind of things can accelerate. It's true, as Carolina mentioned, that fashion as a whole, I mean, all the value chain of fashion has an impact in pollution, but collective action, collective voice, and leadership from the big players as well make the impact. And this impact can be accelerated for these commitments and these collective commitments.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. It does start to show some of the urgency behind the challenge of sustainability and how organizations can adapt, even if they have been in business for many, many years. So thank you for sharing that. I want to go back to you, Christine, to touch upon perhaps your top 3 practical steps your organization has taken. I know you outlined at the start some of the initiatives that you have. I'd like to highlight some of the key practical steps that some of our audience can learn from that you have taken into sustainability.
Yes, great. So well, one of them, which I already mentioned in my first answer, is having this top-down sort of buy-in and prioritization of sustainability, because that really trickles down to all employees within the group in our case, where they realize that this is one of the main ideals of the company, one of the main values, and a key priority. So that really helps in getting everyone to be active and sort of take ownership when they're performing their job to try to implement more sustainable practices. A second thing that is pretty key for us as well is having a data-driven approach to measuring our impact and prioritizing how we want to allocate our resources in achieving sustainability goals. So we've developed a natural capital accounting methodology called the environmental profit and loss, the EPNL, which takes all of our impacts from tier 4 to tier 0 across our different supply chains, all of our raw materials and processes, and looks at different environmental indicators like air pollution, water use, land use, CO2 emissions, and then it's converted into a monetary figure. So if we had to write a check to Mother Nature for all of the impact that our work has on the world, what would the amount of that check be? So this is a tool that really enables us to identify where the impacts are and to then try to tackle those impacts, and also to be able to speak about it in financial terms. They're EPNL dollars, but still it's a language that business people are used to using. So I think that's also been a key initiative for us. And the third one is something Ignacio talked about, but collaboration is really critical. I think we know that some of these issues are big systemic issues. No one company, brand, retailer can address them alone. And it's really through that power of collaboration, whether it be the Fashion Pact, whether, you know, innovation. We have partnerships with Fashion for Good, and there are a number of brands that are members of that group. You know, across the board, we have these collaborative organizations, multi-stakeholder working groups with brands, with competitors, with NGOs, with experts that really let us address these topics as a group, because they're big issues, they're complex issues, and we need to work on them together.
Mm-hmm. So Carolina, would you like to also explain a little more detail? How does your organization approach the construct in engaging in these individual steps? We've heard about how, you know, potentially you can enhance your approach around the supply chain, procurement, purchasing, etc. What steps has your organization taken practically to focus on this?
Actually, I completely agree with what Christine was saying. I think for us at ECOALF, the big pillars, which then I'll explain the steps, have been education, that has been always, transparency, and of course collaboration. I think even before the COVID strike, back in December, when the COP25 had to be moved to Madrid, we signed the Net Zero Pact, committing to reach zero carbon emissions by 2030. And from us at ECOALF, we're still a small company, so we're trying to measure. Of course, data is the way to help us measure and to improve. So the way we are measuring is by the renewable energy that we already have implemented across our stores and our headquarters, by circular design, which we already know that 90% of the impact is done at the design stage of that product. So besides our using low impact materials, ensuring that there is a timeless and essential design, as well as the least amount of number of processes behind that product that will have an impact on the value chain. And of course, that quality, to continue to invest in high quality and innovation to ensure the longer life cycle of our garments. And then the supply chain efficacy, to work closely with our suppliers and help them for energy efficiency. This regarding the Net Zero Pact. Regarding collaborations, we partner with Inescope, which is the leading technology center of footwear in Spain, who's just giving us the life cycle assessment of our sneakers. And it's showing us that it's resulting in one of the lowest carbon emission sneakers in the market, which is something we didn't know. And thanks to this collaboration, they're bringing their expertise and this meticulous management of the entire value chain process, from manufacturing to distribution to all the energy and water consumed throughout the whole process, all the way down to the point of sale when it reaches the customer. And it's amazing for us to see that we are at, I think it's like 4.05 kilograms of emissions when the average sneaker is at 16. So it gives us a way to improve the rest of our footwear category and ensure that we can reach zero emission sneakers as well. And then in terms of transparency and traceability, and this is very big for us at ECOALF, because I think this has been the biggest challenge in this past couple of years, because we were a small team, we were trying to say and to show so many things, and we were not able. So now we have implemented a partner with us known as BCOM, and it's an evaluation system basically that scores ECOALF's degree of environmental, social, and ethical efficiency according to the best sustainable initiatives that are carried out in the value chain. So this is now available in the website, and basically what it enables for both us, the brand, and the customer is a fantastic tool to understand the impact behind each garment. So it's a way to help the customer, to guide them to understand the impact, as well as ECOALF to improve every season across all our categories, all the impact behind the different lines.
Mm-hmm. So just to zoom in on that for 1 second as a follow-up. So kind of consumers visiting your store or your website, for example, they can see the metadata associated with the individual product and its impact?
See the what, sorry?
They can see the data associated with that particular product. So the carbon involved, etc.
Yeah, it's been, basically it's the way BCOM works, it's classified by planet impact, people impact, and people, planet, and there is one more, I can't remember now. Basically the three impacts, and you can see behind how much water consumption, energy, and CO2 emissions have been saved by this recycled product. It also gives you the amount of people that have been working under ethical standards, how many people are involved behind the product, as well as all the certifications like the GRS or the B Corp and all the certifications to ensure that it's all under ethical and proper social and environmental standards.
Excellent. That really helps, I think, bring your brand clearly to the customer, to show that you have not only have sustainability ethics, but you've also followed through to deliver that to the customer clearly, and they can make informed choices.
To be honest, it's both ways. I think it's super useful for the customer, but it's also a way for us to improve and to make sure we know what to work on.
No, absolutely, absolutely, very true. Ignacio, from your perspective, in your previous answer, you mentioned how you've focused on emissions and energy and efficiency throughout the organization. When you look at the manufacturing supply chain and this individual sourcing of product, would you like to give us a little more detail in terms of how you approach those challenges for sustainability?
Yes, as I mentioned, I mean, the real measure is the impact, and we are right in thinking that given the volume and the footprint that a company like us have, I mean, a quite interesting part of the equation is the work with suppliers, because if not, I mean, we will not have the capacity enough. We have been able to generate, I mean, first of all, a track record of data giving us the certainty that we are profitable when we are sustainable. That means that if we do invest in designing and we invest in process altogether with our supply base, we can have a good response from customers. We are devoted, I mean, to the sustainable aspect of the business, and we have done right. Think that, for example, half of our denim worldwide, and we are talking about millions of units at this moment, is what we call H2O process, which was initially created with a strong supplier in Spain and then globally developed with a genealogy. That means that we use approximately 90% less of water in producing a denim, which is a strong advance. We use other techniques like laser, we use techniques as ozone, but we avoid nearly 90% the use of water to wash up denim and to finish the denim. That is a material advance, I mean, because if a big corporation does it, I mean, it's really giving a strong impact in the product. In this sense, we are really motivated by this good acceptance of customers about these ranges, about these collections. We established targets of evolving in sustainable product. Once again, I mean, we are in the mainstream, okay? We are in all the positioning, we are in the premium mass market, but we are in affordable luxury, we are in intimate. And we established a goal of reaching in the second year of the plan 15% of our products sustainable, which is, I mean, it's an advance starting from scratch. We are above to getting that in year one rather than in year two. That is a very strong advance, and this is committing our designers and our purchase teams in establishing more ambitious goals. That's impact. That's real impact, because I mean, we are a global player, and if we get to the point in which the communication with the customer and the value promise that we offer is really understood by the customer, and we understand well their preferences, I mean, we will advance much faster in the future.
That's, you know, it's very, I think, impressive how you have a clear set of measures and goals the organization is following, and some clear critical success factors there, which, you know, can really form the basis of how you measure progress. But Christine, I wanted to pick your thoughts again once more. We look at, you know, the circular economy. One key challenge that comes up again and again is closing the loop when it comes to handling towards the end of life or extending life or reuse and other aspects of eliminating perhaps some of the wastage that comes out at the end of life of the fashion industry. Would you like to share your perspective on how this can be addressed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Very, very critical issue, of course, as we know. And I think circularity and the 3 pillars of circularity, with looking at design and keeping products in use and looking how to regenerate ecosystems as well. These are very, very critical if we're going to move forward toward a more sustainable overall apparel sector and supply chain. So there are many ways that we're seeing in terms of innovation and how to address the end of life. You have different recycling techniques that are coming up. So there's a lot happening in synthetics, recycled nylon, recycled polyester. Carolina's probably the expert on some of the recycled nylon. We're seeing regenerated cashmere, cotton that can be used for denims, et cetera. So on the mechanical side, there's a lot on the market already. And we're seeing a number of innovators that are looking at the chemical recycling piece. So how can you take a blended polycotton fabric and break that down into the virgin polyester pellets and the virgin cellulosic? So there's some exciting new coming onto the market, like H&M has a collaboration with RenewCell that has come onto the market the past few months. Really some great stuff there. We've been sponsoring a startup called Worn Again, which is doing chemical recycling for a number of years, going back till 2014 or so. And just amazing to see the progress that's being made there, which is really exciting. Then of course, you also have the more retail business model focused innovations that we're seeing. So everything around the resale, the rental, how can we keep things in use and circulated instead of putting them in a landfill? And so I think that's a whole another incredibly exciting piece of sector of innovation that we're seeing. Just to go back to the EP&L that I mentioned, what it's shown us is that 70% of our impact is actually at that tier 4 raw material production stage. So the cotton field, you know, the gold mine, the cattle farm. So it's really critical to help support and advance the hard tech, chemical recycling, mechanical recycling, and also the more soft tech, retail, resale, new business model focused innovations, so that we don't have to keep going back to source the virgin raw materials, because that's just going to have a profound effect on the health of our ecosystems overall. One small thing I'll just add is that KERING also recently launched a biodiversity strategy, and within that, one of the critical principles that we are looking at is how do we regenerate soil? So how do we source from regenerative farming, producers that are doing regenerative farming practices? And we've also established a fund a €5 million fund where over the next 5 years, we're going to be helping to sponsor projects that do regenerate these ecosystems. So we're really excited about that as well.
Mm-hmm. So one follow-up on that, I'm really interested to know, I mean, in the next normal that we are in, and I'm amazed we got this far without talking about the next normal. But I've seen a lot in the fashion press, for example, about the shift in the business model in fashion from a season-based to a more a flexible model. What is your opinion of that and how that impacts sustainability?
Yeah, it's a great question, Sammar, and it's something that we're looking at internally right now to really understand the impacts. We're in the midst of as we all know, a very unique situation. And we've seen this rapid acceleration toward digital innovation. So how can we allow the customer to do virtual fit or shopping from a distance, or how do we utilize 3D design? It could be any number of these innovations that are happening. So one thing that I think is key for all of us is making sure that the way we're implementing these new tools is leading us in the direction we think. We think it's less impactful, but again, going back to being data-driven, let's make sure we have the KPIs in there as we're testing, piloting, and rolling things out to make sure it really is less impactful. So, the whole fashion week, digital virtual showrooms, the move toward doing fewer fashion shows per year, the trend in our minds, we can say, yes, this is going to be less impactful, but internally, we're also really trying to find the data to back that up. Mm-hmm. But a couple of our brands, Gucci notably and Saint Laurent, have publicly announced that they're going to not follow the traditional fashion show schedule going forward. So yeah, there are definitely changes happening now.
Right, thank you for that. Just a quick reminder to the audience, please start logging your questions on the chat. Look forward to getting to those very shortly. Carolina, from your perspective, just we touched upon the end of life, and again, as a native sustainable brand, how do you support that process, and how do you demonstrate the ultimate recycling and reuse of your product?
Well, actually, that's one of our biggest challenges and what we've been working for the past 2 years. Because a lot of the times we're asked to give talks about circular economy, and we always emphasize that we are not circular economy yet until we actually close the loop. So we're going to be pilot testing in a few months a project where we actually collect all the garments to be able to then recycle them and give them a third life. No. So this is for us the biggest project to end the year. And the idea is to be able to do it to kick off in Spain for proximity purpose and to try, and then probably roll it out into Germany, which is our second biggest market.
Mm-hmm. This is a significant challenge. I'm very, very pleased to hear how you guys are really progressing that. Ignacio, from your perspective, as a brand operating, in 80+ countries with significant volume, how do you address that process of closing the loop?
Well, first of all, I think that the most relevant aspect for that is to get capacity, because capacity will give really accessibility. At this moment, even if techniques and advances are being produced in the industry, it's still tough for us, for big companies, get the volumes we really need to make this product accessible to our customers, right? So as much companies and brands are involved, the best of capacity and the best of prices we will get for our customers, to make this really affordable at reasonable prices in a value proposition. We are really looking for supporting good suppliers that have, as we made since the very beginning, their choice of the bet for the medium and the long term. That means that really we support suppliers even in tough times in which orders have been revoked or so, to maintain the project for the long and the medium and the long term, to let them to invest in these new techniques. Really to, let's say, even if you have to reduce your purchase in 1 year, really to commit a stronger purchase for the long run, and analyze what are these kind of products and the offers related to recycle materials, related to circular materials we can get. Of course, I mean, also a bet in value more than in volume really helps you to minimize the footprint of the stock, which is TENDAM has in the last 3 years established a very tight control on stocks. This is also protecting us, for example, in a crisis like the COVID-19 crisis, in which we are even reducing stock rather than increasing stock, despite, I mean, the fall in sales is noticeable and it's material. And that also helps. And to have the network as active as possible in order to avoid to destroy material when it's not usable for recycling. I mean, it's to relocate the stock, to have very strong network of social commitment and social aid to make these samples or to make these redundancies really good enough for the people and being used in the best way possible to avoid, I mean, our goal is really, and what we are now is in zero destruction of product. And we think that it is, it's a combination of three things: commitment with supply chain, stock control, and third, a good network to really implement measures with the samples or with all this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Ignacio. I think it's very important, as you mentioned, managing that network of suppliers and supporting them, particularly through the current crisis, is crucial for the longevity of the industry overall, and supporting the huge network of people involved in delivering the ultimate product in the hands of our consumer. So with that, I've got an open question to the panel. We've seen and heard about the acceleration of commerce, again, obviously triggered by the next normal activity. Could you share perhaps some of your perspectives from a sustainability perspective on how you've seen that acceleration in commerce and how, from a sustainability angle, you are looking to deliver upon the promise there?
Well, I think that if I may to jump first, what we are seeing is a very intense acceleration of omnichannel. Omnichannel represents really not just the explosion of e-commerce, which is happening, of course, during the confinement and the lockdown, but also the combination of a capillary stock network with the service we provide through e-commerce. We're seeing that it's working well, that's been cost efficient, and also it's been sustainable, because we are avoiding the last mile cost by using the capability of our stores, which are close to the customer, really to manage better, let's say, the pickup points and also to how to say, to receive the product, which when come back from the customer, I mean, to the brand. And we are having there a reduction of cost, very, very intense, and also a reduction of impact in terms of climate change and in terms of consumption.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a pattern. It's a pattern that will last forever. I mean, has come here to stay. It's not just a consequence of the COVID or the lockdown or the confinement. It's something that will stay. I mean, everybody is prioritizing an efficiency, and will be a must on that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Carolina, Christine, I'd love to share hear your perspective. Sorry, on how is that acceleration in commerce being delivered through sustainability from your perspectives?
I mean, for us, we've also seen this omni-channel aspect that Ignacio was mentioning, and I think it's also going to be a trend that is going to stay, for the next couple of years for sure. Something that we found now during this when everything started around March was again going back to collaborations and partnerships. We found this technology that it's basically it works with as a photocatalytic treatment, And it's something that is used in the industries, not in the fashion industry, but in general in the hospitality business or in architecture. And it's basically a coating that kills virus and bacteria, and that it also eradicates pollution. No? So in a simple way, it cleans the air. So we've been investing a lot of time in exploring this, and we partner with them to introduce this in our garments. So this is at the end, it's something that goes way beyond just the actual killing of bacteria, both whether if you have this garment on or in the store, but it's a powerful tool to fight against air pollution in the cities. And actually, they're part of the ISK project, which is a part of the European Union, to combat air pollution in the European cities. So again, it's a way to find a step in our commitment that is not just about the product, but it's about the environment and the impact. No, it's a way to help reduce air pollution while you are basically on the streets. No, because at the end it works with solar energy.
Oh, wow, that's incredible technology. Very pleasing to hear about this cutting-edge innovation. It makes a difference to the air that we breathe.
Yeah, it's creativity. It comes in during challenging times.
Absolutely, Christine. From your perspective, we often hear about, one of the pitfalls of commerce is the high level of returns, which has obviously significant environmental impact in packaging and carbon in last mile delivery. What steps is your organization taking to help address some of these challenges?
Yeah, well, we've actually launched a series of webinars internally on sustainability and e-commerce in particular, breaking it down into each of these big issues. So returns, B2B packaging, B2C packaging. So we're really trying to engage with people, not only at the group level, but also with within the brands and people who are really operational, because someone in the image team might be deciding to put a black logo on a poly bag, not realizing, or a sticker, not realizing that that's going to make it harder to recycle that poly bag afterwards. So there are a lot of tips that can be given to just make it easier for products to, like the plastic or whatever it is in your value chain that you're trying to reduce or avoid or recycle, to make it easier to do that later on. So that's one step we're taking. Also with our partners Fashion for Good in Amsterdam, we're doing a couple of pilots on packaging and plastic poly bags, again, with a number of other corporate partners. So one is taking the used bags from our distribution center, getting them recycled by one of the startups that had been in the accelerator program at Fashion for Good that has a recycling technology to remove the inks and remove the stickers and still get a very high quality poly bag at the end with very high recycled content, and then send those back. So it's closing the loop on our poly bags so that we can use the new recycled poly bags made from our own waste. And another one where we're working in London with retail stores on picking up the poly bags with electric vehicles run by a startup called First Mile, recycling those and then bringing those back to be the new bags that you collect new poly bags in. So we have a couple of pilots that we're testing, and again, in this collaborative spirit. And another thing that we've done is at group level, we've created standards, which are open sourced actually, because we really do believe also in trying to open source knowledge so we can learn from others and share what we're trying to do. And so we've open sourced these standards for raw materials and processing, which you can find on our website. And we have one specific to packaging so that anyone, our and people within our company can look and see what is the hierarchy, how do we prioritize, should we be trying to find biodegradable or recycled, or how do we go about this? So those are a few of the things that we're trying to do internally to help identify, understand, look at best practices and reduce our impacts around this space.
It's a very rich answer there. There's a lot of key steps that you've taken, a lot that we can learn from there. I'd like to now pick on some of the questions shared by our attendees, and thank you all for submitting those via the chat. let me pick one here. I think, Ignacio, one for you. You mentioned earlier about your commitment and understanding of the global supply chain and supporting suppliers. How are you supporting commitments for garment workers? And in your capacity as being a member of many industry forums, how are you seeing the fashion industry addressing support for garment workers?
Yeah, well, first of all, we have to really make visible that the big industry has global impact, and we are creating jobs and we are creating wealth. And as the European Union, in our case, as a European company, understood with its trade policy, we are really an agent of the change for less developed countries. In that respect, after being more than 100-year-old company, and starting our business as a manufacturing company, we understand that medium to long-term commitments and partnerships are essential on that. I mean, of course, I mean, all we have faced a shock with a crisis like this, but the way to act is really to trying to support all the suppliers and all of them, which has really a commit for the future, trying to graduate the future products and purchase, orienting them on what kind of product will be the product demanded in the future, looking for the value of this product in order to share the real value along the value chain, not just to focus on very low cost things, but really to look for the right product proposition, understanding that the customer after this crisis is not really wanting to pay many more for the same, but the opposite, to be in a bit more in a savings mode, right? And to share that vision with the supply chain in order to try to really to support them for the long term, because they will support you in the long term as well. I mean, we have, in our long history, we have had problems as a company, and we have been supported by suppliers, and we understand when the suppliers can have problems, how to graduate, how to elaborate on I would say, really the secret will be in thinking in a fashion that lasts, in thinking in product that will have longer duration, and analyzing qualities and the rhythm of the fashion we launch to the market, with not losing, I mean, the excitement of our industry, which is marvelous, but really understanding that long-lasting fashion and long-lasting relationship with partners is essential for trust and also for being meaningful even for the customer.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. I have a question I want to share with Karin and Christine. One question come in about motivating and educating consumer change in sustainability. And Carolina, in your initial comments, you talked about the importance of that branding and sharing those messages. We'd like to elaborate a bit more how you motivate the customer towards sustainability.
Okay, I think probably it's been now 2 years. We started to do what we call Act Nows in our retail stores in Madrid and in Berlin. And it's basically a space that we in our stores that where we invite the community, all friends and family, and it's totally open for everybody in our network. And basically, we discuss different things, whether if it's about fashion or about sustainability or about innovation or technology. We invite other projects that have an impact on the environment, and basically we give them a voice to showcase these projects. And this is something that happens once a month in each store. And basically it's a way to educate and to motivate our consumers, totally open for all of them. And we always record them and share them on social media. I think this has been something that we've been very supported from our customers, and that we get asked a lot by the customers. No, when is an Act Now? When are you doing an event to take part? Also, education, where we've been giving around 300 talks this past year, not just in retail forums, but also in schools, in universities, MBAs. I mean, at the end, it's about trying to raise awareness and inspire, no? Whether if it's the designers or the suppliers or all the different stakeholders, their decisions are going to be so important, and they need to start thinking circular, no? As we were all mentioning before. So I think for us this is something very important, and we continue to invest a lot of time to give talks around the world to the different audiences. So I think these two are quite relevant for the consumer motivation.
Absolutely. I've got a follow-up question I'd like to share with Christine. I had one question come in from the audience. Now, how important is company culture in and the use of technology and sustainability? And you talked a lot about, for example, the importance of leadership and aligning strategy and execution. So would you like to elaborate on that in the context of company culture?
Yes, for sure. So I mentioned the drive and the passion that Mr. Pinault has for sustainability, and how that is recognized as one of the top values by almost all employees, I'd say, within the company. A couple other things I think that have been established, which are really important, are people's annual targets, their annual objectives, regular employment objectives, are tied to, not everybody, but more and more every year, are tied to the EP&L impact results. So a CEO of a brand within KERING will be reviewed on whether the EP&L results of that brand are going down, if they're reducing their impact, and that's part of their regular evaluation. So I think that's really, really important, is to start incorporating sustainability related KPIs into every employee's job objectives, job description for the year, because that's really when you get over sort of this idea of you know, I'm going for the financial incentive that I'm supposed to achieve, to I also have a sustainability and an impact incentive in as part of my job. So I think that part is really key. And you know, I mentioned also briefly that we're doing some internal webinars on sustainability around e-commerce. You know, there's a lot of internal animation with people within the group, within the brands, operational level, getting very specific on certain topics. Also with our suppliers, a lot of engagement with our suppliers too. And these are complex issues, and it really, you know, I've been working in sustainability for almost 15 years, and I'm still trying to get my head around some of the issues we're dealing with, because they're not easy. So the more you can talk together, share together, you know, have workshops, discuss issues, learn from others, you know, you can't do enough of that, I'd say, to really build up the culture and the awareness.
Yeah, I think as you've outlined there, it's a continuous effort, continuous engagement with employees, with customers, with suppliers, to build that culture continually. One question for everyone on the panel, maybe a quick 30 seconds each on this. I had a question come in. How do companies avoid the trap of greenwashing? So some companies are keen to market sustainability, but are struggling to implement it behind the scenes. What steps can companies take to avoid that? Ignacio, perhaps start with you.
Yes, I mean, this is the track of honesty at this moment. I mean, never in history the customer has been so close to the brands in terms of scrutiny. And if you do not do right, and if you are doing fake, I mean, it's very fast. You will not have an answer to many questions. I mean, if you are really impacting, if you're working in a more sustainable product, and you can demonstrate it, if you are taking resources from the company and mobilizes resources from the society and from customers as well to do initiatives in biodiversity, in campaigns, with environmental impact. This is something that you can show and that you can really track on. Criticism, there will be always criticism. But as far as this proximity with the customer now through the social network really gives you the opportunity to explain and to elaborate about it, if you do not have an answer of what you are proposing, you will really have a very bad result on that. But if you do right, and it's an honest approach, if I'm acting the best I can according to the impact I have, and this is real, and this is sustained by resources from the company, by involvement and engagement from the people that works in the brand, in the company, and there is understanding of the customer approach to that and the customer perception. That's key.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a great follow-up for Carolina. Again, representing a brand here that is native to sustainability. How do you address that challenge, perhaps from others who are greenwashing? And I'm sure you guys have strong opinions around that.
Well, to me, it's all about coherency and responsibility and commitment. And I think the easiest way for consumers to understand is it's not about a limited edition, it's not about a capsule, it's not even about one product, no? It's about incorporating it across the whole corporation, and it's about the business model. Of course, it's a lot of unanswered questions, a lot of uncertainties, and a lot of things that we need to change, and very complex, as Christine well mentioned. But it is about every step across the whole corporation, starting with the people and starting with our own employees. And at the end, something that we say a lot, it's not about what you do, it's about how you do it. Because there's 1,000 brands, 1,000 products out there, but it's about how you're doing it and making sure that you're generating the least amount of natural resources and generating the least amount of waste.
Absolutely, and that's spot on, and it really distinguishes it, taking practical action and making things happen, as opposed to simple promises, which I think what the concern about greenwashing represents. Christine, finally, for you to conclude on this, it is about following through on that promise of sustainability. So again, how do you distinguish and show your stakeholders externally, your shareholders and others, that you are really delivering upon this?
Yeah, I feel like I'm repeating myself a little bit, but the data is important, I think, to be able to understand where your impacts are, be collecting that data and be able to actually back it up in a sort of scientific way, saying this is what we've done. We can show through the numbers that we've achieved these results. I think you have to report back very often to the public, to your consumers, to your shareholders, to everybody. So keeping this dialogue sort of where you are, nobody's perfect, we're not perfect. If you start saying you're perfect, that's when you're going to get in trouble on the greenwashing side, because these are complicated issues. They take a long time. They're systemic, so the honesty and the open communication, I think, is quite important in reporting back on results and progress. And, we're in a stage now just about innovation and technology where people can find out many things. There are applications. There's one called Good On You, a startup from Australia, where they can rank brands, and consumer can be shopping and look up on Good On You, how does X brand rank or Y brand rank? And so there's more transparency at people's fingertips now than ever before, and that's just going to build over time as well. So it's going to be harder and harder for companies that might be greenwashing to do that, because people are going to be able to access the truth more and more easily.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point to conclude on, Christine. So just to wrap up for the audience from my side, again, to thank the panel, and before I invite Gary back in to conclude, I think, we can definitely take away some key messages from today. It is about to deliver upon the promise of sustainability, to make it happen, is about transparency, trust, execution, innovation, and measuring what you do. I think all of you have talked about in depth on each of those topics and reaching across the entire supply chain. And as you've mentioned, it's a continuous effort, a cultural effort, and one that will ultimately benefit all people, from consumers to producers through to the end shareholder, who ultimately will benefit with the longevity of the industry. So with that, I'd like to thank you so much for the participation in the panel and invite Gary back in. Gary?
Thank you, Sammar. Thank you to all of our speakers. Apologies to the attendees that we didn't get to answering their questions. I mean, we're still having questions coming in now. It's one of those topics where we could probably have another hour and then another hour's worth of questions coming during that hour. So of course we have to stop somewhere. So it's been a really rich and thoroughly enjoyable discussion. So a special thank you to Carolina, Christine, Sammar and Ignacio for taking part. As I mentioned from the outset, we record all of these sessions and it'll be available probably in the next couple of hours alongside the guide produced by SAP. So feel free to share that with your colleagues and your peers, and hopefully we'll all be more enlightened from this discussion, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you very much for your time, guys.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Great panel.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks.